All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Tuesday, June 6, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today. So another kind of quiet day here on the street. NASDAQ down 2 basis points. Call the market police. The NASDAQ was negative for once. Spiders here up about 0.25%. Dow up just 4 pennies there on the DIA. The Russell was actually the big winner. So we talked about this yesterday. It was like, well, so much for the great rotation. And today we actually got some of that here. Not crazy though, right? So the Russell was up nicely, but some other sectors weren't really, XLE was green, XLF was green, but it wasn't like a huge robust day in all those sectors. The main reason for the IWM being green, in my opinion, is KRE had a nice 5% move, and lots of regionals in the Russell 2000. We talked about this 44 to 45 handle. It's almost there. I thought today, I did say in a short video, it should pull back around 43 on an intraday basis, and obviously overshot that area, but it did manage to pull back off of the highs here, and it still finished up 5%. You still have some resistance though in that 44 to 45 handle. Again, this is kind of where you broke down from. Take a look on the weekly. A lot of resistance in there. Anybody who bought this dip is going to be looking to get out in that area, so just be aware of that. But right now the Russell is acting well. We had a good day Friday. We gave a lot of those gains back yesterday, and then we had a big move up. I got some resistance at 186, and then ultimately 190 is going to be your big level there on the IWM. But that's acting well right now, and again, the regionals giving that a lift. And XLF here did have a decent day, up 1.25. Still not the greatest chart pattern here, especially on the weekly, but it did have a nice update. Everybody's talking about the VIX right now, so down 4.75%, and it did crack through the 13 handle. So low of the day 1396, and take a look here. You got to go back to 2021. So is this showing a lot of complacency? I think it is. Is it showing tail risk 30 days out? Yes, but you got to remember a lot of this is skewed here because the 0DTE kind of messes with the VIX here, and it doesn't really calculate that in. There still could be tail risk 30 days out though, and that's something to watch. We do have the TGA refill coming up. That is going to suck at least $1 trillion out, and it's going to have to be done pretty quickly, I would think. I know there's we talked about this yesterday with Mayhem. Check that interview out if you haven't. It'll be at the end of the video. Really great stuff from him, and got some really positive feedback there. But there's people are trying to say reverse repo is going to soak it all up. That doesn't seem likely. It may be able to soak some of it up, but we have that coming up here, and it does look like the market's not really paying attention to that. We're also going into CPI and FOMC next week, also June OPEX, and then a few weeks after quarterly OPEX. So lots of stuff going on here. This week, however, we look at the spiders here. It's been a quiet 2 days. We had that move up Friday. Yeah, we're basically flattish, chopping around here the last 2 days on the spiders. Why? Well, there's no data, right? Here's a close Friday. Look at, we're basically flat exactly. 2 Fridays close. There's no data outside of jobless claims Thursday, but that happens every week, so nothing really too significant there. And then, of course, next week, CPI, then FOMC, then the TJ starts to refill on Friday, and then, June OPEX. So that's where you probably get some fireworks to potentially go off here. But, markets are holding up. Again, we talked about the big 618, which was hit really yesterday. And we kind of backed off that today, and we did finish green, but a lot of resistance up here, the double top. The markets are really just kind of in that anemic light volume float. We finished under 60 million shares. I'm doing this video, it's 4:08 p.m., so a couple of blocks go off the close. We probably finished with like 56 million shares on the spider. So light volume float, markets are anemic. Everybody's complacent. So again, we're looking at the VIX there. The VIX tends to, when everybody's looking at it, if you're going to get a bottom in the VIX, this is just kind of my experience, you don't tend to get a huge reversal all at once. Usually what you'll get is a low, a slight higher low, and then that's when it takes off. So when everybody's looking at it, it usually doesn't put in a bottom right away. You may kind of curl back down. You may do one of these where you get a move here and then a slight lower low and then a move up. Even kind of right here, get the same kind of thing, slight lower low, and then we really put in a bottom. So Again, I still think the VIX is pretty skewed here, but looking out 30 days, I think there is some tail risk there, especially considering how much we're up, right? Again, triple Qs here, what are we up? 13%. So 310 to 354 here, really in a month. And we're on right now, 7-week win streak. So really overbought, extended. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys are aware here. But markets right now, they're holding up. I think that we'll probably get a lot of chop here. Unless we get some type of, data that comes out of nowhere. It does look like the market's going to be kind of in pause mode, really until, next Tuesday at the very least, which is CPI. And the Fed is expected to pause. And that's another thing, too. The Fed is expected to pause. They're not going to surprise the market. I mean, unless CPI comes in like wildly hot or something. So they're not going to surprise the market. So the market knows that we're pausing. And I would think a lot of that is priced in there. But in any case, markets are holding up, and we'll just leave it at that for now. If we can see continued rotation, that is a good sign for bulls here. But Russell 2000, I know a lot of that action today was from the KRE. The Dow here, again, basically backing off a little bit, but still inside of this green bar here. If you lose that low, that's a big negative here. But right now it's holding up okay. Again, I think we get some chop really across the board until next week. Semiconductors did pull back today, but then they finished green. So they did have a pretty good dump in the morning and then rolled over and then kind of just floated back up again, the light volume today. It makes it hard for you to get follow through to the downside when the volume is this light. But semiconductors did manage to scratch out again. And it's like, sometimes you get this kind of, this trade here. Look at AMD. So that was up 5.34%. But NVIDIA was down 1.32%. So you kind of get them to kind of switch sometimes. AMD doing a lot of the legwork as NVIDIA backs off. It does look like some serious distribution going on up here on NVIDIA, though. But for right now, semis are holding up. And they got a little bit of a bid. You lose this green bar, you're probably going back down to this trend line, though, and that 20 moving average there. IGV here, flat to positive on the day, up just 73 cents. So nothing crazy going on. Again, a lot of weekly chop in this area here. We'll watch that moving forward. I think Oracle actually, I believe that's at an all-time high too. Yeah, so that just made a new all-time closing high. So Oracle, man, it's been a powerhouse. Look at this, $60 to 107. So that's up almost 100% here since the October lows. And Oracle's not a Tesla, right? It's not NVIDIA. It's definitely a little bit slower of a mover. So big move there for ORCL, and that has helped out IGV a ton. Dow Transports, we're up 0.5% here. We did dip pretty good early. Really on the first 10 minutes, there was a pretty good dump. And then we immediately kind of rebounded and closed, not too far off the highs of the day. I'm still not in love with this price action here. This could still just be daily consolidation, and it could put in a move to 14.5 like we talked about. But it keeps showing relative weakness, right? And it was up more than the market today, but we had a high. Now we're kind of making like short-term lower highs and lower lows. We took out Friday's low this morning. Didn't close below it, obviously, but still a little bit on the weaker side. As far as the technicals are concerned, if you start to get back in this range, it's going to be a pretty big negative. So just be careful with the transports here. Nothing broken, nothing terrible right now. The weekly, you're still, holding this green bar here on a closing basis, but you're still inside a lot of red too. So just be aware of that. But transports, up 0.5%. We won't make too much more out of it. All right, over to bonds. So the 2-year taking a little bit of a hit today. 2-year yield is at back above 4.5 here. Again, 2-year, if this continues to fall and the yield continues to go up, it's going to kind of poke a hole in that whole theory that the Fed's going to cut rates. I don't think they're going to be able to anyway, and I fully expect that to get back above 5% at some point. But right now, they're just kind of hanging in there, a little bit of backing and filling. But this is ultimately, and I like looking at the actual yield here because the futures are kind of skewed because of that gap. But you have this up move here. You kind of basically back tested the 20, back tested this area, and it's holding up okay. So again, yields here. Market doesn't care right now. Doesn't care about the inverted yield curve either, but this is the type of thing that can come back here. But 10-year, again, same thing, holding up okay. 30-year, Backed off a little bit here, but that's holding up as well. Anyways, let's get over to housing. XHP continues to be a powerhouse. New 52-week closing highs. So that fake print from yesterday played out, and we actually exceeded that a little bit. This looks okay. If this can continue higher, should be a level around 77. That's going to be your next kind of big resistance there. This red bar high, there's a gap right at 79, so right in that area. But XHB holding up, and we got to respect it here. I still think in the second half of the year, this is going to be a big short trade. But right now, they're holding up. They're showing strength. You know, you back tested that 20-week moving average last week, and you got a nice pop off of it. So it's acting well. There's the ITB, basically the same thing. And you got to respect it right now. So home builders continuing to hold up. VNQ, nothing terrible here. You know, inside day here. It's still a weak chart in a downtrend. But again, if the market holds up, this can hold up as well. XLF, we mentioned it briefly earlier. Again, nothing great. Weekly pattern here. Still bearish inside bar chop. Below the 20 moving average. You get back above the 20 and the 50, then we can talk about maybe going higher here, but right now still, you know, a weak chart in a downtrend. And again, financials, yes, we could get a good ABC up here on KRE. We've talked about that, and that's starting to play out. But again, lots of weekly resistance in this area here around 45. So just be careful with fins right now. There's the KBE. That's got a lot of resistance at 38, which you're basically into currently. And then broker dealers continuing to push up. Slight outperformance here, getting above Friday's high relative to the rest of the market. Going into the 200 moving average, but up 1.5%. We did pause for a day. So again, this is some resistance. I would say 460 is a little bit better of a level. So we'll see what that does tomorrow, but that's holding up okay for now. Crude here. Man, just really all over the map. We had that big dump yesterday, and then remember we talked about this. We had that big, I think it was like 7 or 8% gap up on the OPEC cut news. Yesterday it was only about a 2% gap up, and then we faded it. And you know, we're holding 70, so you could make a case we have a higher low, but this just doesn't look strong right now. I'm not a fan of the pattern, not a fan of the weekly. Big weekly inside bar below the 20. I mean, look where you gapped up to, right to that 20-week moving average before you backed off. So I'm not really in love with crude here. Definitely have a downside bias right now, but no real trade in either direction, at least. Not anything high percentage at the moment. XLE, again, green to red day, so that does show a little bit of strength, up 81 basis points. I still don't love the pattern here. Same thing with XOP. Decent day, up 2%. Still don't love that pattern. OIH hung in there well, up 1.25. This one's a little bit different. If this can consolidate, I would give it the upside bias to 280, maybe even up to the 290 area, that 100 MA there. But right now the pattern's too sloppy to do anything with. Nat gas here hanging in there today. Again, had a little test candle and then closed basically flat to positive, so nothing really doing. Still just stuck in this range for now, but it's hanging in there just fine. Dollar index, again, you know, back up a couple of pennies here, up 15 cents on the day. Still inside of this red bar here, but macro pattern is still bullish, right? So the weekly, you're inside of this green bar, little pause candle, inside hammer on the weekly, and you know, a little more consolidation here can push you up into that 50-week moving average 106, maybe even to 107 if you get enough juice here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks to get through. So if you consolidate that can get through that. So dollars hanging in there okay, and again, market's not respecting it right now. Market doesn't care right now. I think you go test 106 and make a higher high. That may change. But for right now, you know, dollar's holding up and market is not really paying attention or doesn't care. Gold here, still just inside of this kind of choppiness, red bar area from the middle of May. Weekly still fine until proven otherwise. You break that 20-week moving average and things can change. Silver, same thing. Trying to hold that 20 moving average, but it is on the weaker side. I still think that needs to go test 22. And then platinum up 31 basis points, following through a little bit. If this consolidates here, this can go higher, but it's been all over the map lately. I want to see a little bit more of a sustained pattern here before I do anything with it. And then palladium basically flat today, nothing crazy going on there. I'd still like to see a pierce of double bottom. And then copper, you know, holding up okay. If this consolidates, this can go test, we'll call it 387 here. Well, let's say 385 for now. But we'll see on pattern there if that can have like a little ABC up move. All right, over to Bitcoin here lastly. So Bitcoin acted really well today. This morning it was getting pounded, and you basically back tested this area here around 25. So attempted breakdown. We did lose that green bar, which is a negative, but you have an engulfing reversal now. So that is a sign of strength here in the near term until proven otherwise. And if you watch, Coinbase did get sued today, a day after Binance getting sued. It came off the lows. And you look at MSTR, that had an engulfing reversal. Riot, not engulfing, but red to green day. Marathon, take a look at the move here. Big move for Marathon today. So Bitcoin and Bitcoin equity is acting well, despite that pretty good sell yesterday. And we did actually make a new closing low yesterday too. So a good reverse there. We'll see how this behaves. You'd lost that green bar, so that is a negative. However, you guys know what I'm going to say. The weekly is still fine. Until you close below that 20-week moving average, this is still okay here. You really got to get above 28,738 though on a weekly close and negate that red bar. If you do that, then I think you can probably make a new nominal high in Bitcoin. So we're watching this pattern here, but interesting, kind of some fireworks going off for Bitcoin. Attempted breakdown, and now it's holding. So we'll see how this trades into tomorrow. I'm very interested to see how if this follows through, or do we pause? What happens here? What kind of pattern sets up? But Bitcoin equities did act well in the face of bad news, right? So that's always a good positive. So we'll give Bitcoin kind of the benefit of the doubt right now. You got to get above that 50-day moving average here, and then really above that weekly level at 28. Let me do it again here. 28,738. So that's going to be the level to watch by the end of the week, but Bitcoin holding up much better. Anyways, back over to the spiders here. So market's hanging in there. Again, nothing really crazy going on. We do have a Fed blackout. We have no economic data this week, but next week CPI, FOMC, and then TGA refill and OPEX. So lots going on next week. I would expect to see some fireworks at the very least. I'm very interested to see what the pattern looks like going into that. Anyways, guys, can wrap up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Talk to you all tomorrow.